happy to see everybody here. Dr. Gilly is off hopefully getting water for us and some more books, but he'll join us here as soon as he can. Welcome to our quarterly meeting of the Wise County Historical Society. I am Sharon Pigeon, the current president, not the most knowledgeable person about it. Wanda Rose down here is the heart of our group, but I'm happy to welcome you all. We're going to have a wonderful speaker today, but it's been requested that we go around the table and introduce ourselves, so now I've started, and I turn the floor over to you.
I'm Jack Turner from Wise at Church Hill and now Big Stone Gap.
I'm Joyce Turner.
Yes.
I'm Marcy Powers from Pound.
Thank you so much.
I'm Janice Scales from Big Stone. I'm the speaker's wife.
I'm Mary Otto. I'm a journalist and I write about healthcare. And I'm in the area and I saw the article about the talk today and thought this is meant to be. I'm really grateful to be here.
Ricky Lawson, Coburn.
And I'm Tony Scales. I am the person you have to suffer through after this meeting.
Jack.
I'm Candace Nichols from Pound.
I'm Linda Hubbard from Pound.
I'm Margaret Sturgill from south of the mountain in the Pound.
I'm Becky Branham from down the road from Margaret.
I'm Victor Short from Pound, south of the mountain.
Oh, you all got that whole side.
Yeah, South Mountain right here.
Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
Amanda Ship from Wise.
Joyce Shepherd Wise.
Wanda Rose Wise.
Ben Rose, Charlottesville.
See, we draw them in from everywhere. This is the place to be. Before we start with our very important speaker today, I want to give Wanda a chance to give us a bit of a report, treasurer's report. We've had a donation or two that she will report on, I hope, and take care of a little business before we get started, because it's hard to get your attention for business after we've had a speaker. Everybody's focused on that. Wanda?
Well, we gave a $200 donation to the Pound Historical Society, and I received a thank you note, but I don't think I had it in all my papers.
We're donating to help them restore this lovely mural that they have there to greet folks coming into Pound, and so we're delighted to do that if we want to pass that around for folks who haven't seen it.
And in our savings account, we have $3,179.04. In our checking account, we have $1,925. And we have a CD for $12,000. We have a bill coming up, and this might want to be discussed, about our website. And in September, we will owe $140, and that will be for this year and next. So do we want to continue with the website?
Who's keeping it up?
Right now, Philip is. We finally got the password and everything from Kent. And
well, I haven't visited it, so I don't know how well it's doing, but I think it's important that we have a web presence. Does anyone else have any opinion on that?
I agree.
Yeah, well, online is where a lot of people go for information, so I think that, does someone want to make a motion that we pay that for the future forthcoming year? Victor wants to make a motion. Do I hear a second? All righty, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? All right, you have authority to pay our bills.
What is the name of your
well,
website?
I have always paid the you know, they just told me to pay the bills, and I did, but I didn't know how we felt about continuing
Renewing.
with the wedding.
It's kind of some vintage clothing items, and we need to talk about that, but I'm thinking right now everyone doesn't have enough information. We need to get some values established on this. We've been tentatively trying to get some interest to sell these items so we can just get some money, because we don't have places for furs and vintage wedding dresses and that sort of thing. But we're new at this, so we're sort of stumbling along. I think maybe the best thing to do is, we have sort of a brochure, and I don't have a hard copy, so maybe if we have everyone's email address, we can just email you that, and you can take a look at it, see what you think about, maybe there's something on there you would like to purchase for your own use. But Michael's not here right yet. He hopefully will be along soon, and Philip's not here today, and that's really, I believe, all Wanda and I know, other than our tentative efforts have resulted in people saying, well, your prices are a little too high, so we're going to need to change something in our plan on that.
If I may inject here, Wanda had asked if I would look and see if I could find anything, and I had sent out a query, and the lady came back saying that our prices were reasonable. That the prices that we were asking were reasonable if we were selling directly. But if you're selling
like a wholesaler
to someone to buy, then we need, the prices need to be dropped.
Okay. All right, we'll have to decide what our market is, I guess,
Right,
really.
right.
And we did buy a mannequin to display the wedding dress. Maybe Michael can run us up.
How old is the wedding dress?
1913.
Oh, that's,
And a mink coat that doesn't look like it's even been out of the wrapper.
whoa.
And I threatened by it this winter because I was
Well, for people who love vintage things, I love vintage things, I think they will like this. Sadly, a lot of people coming up with money don't care much for vintage things. So, you know, we'll have to kind of find our market a little bit better, I think. As you all are seeing, Gaynell has primarily authored this wonderful publication for us, and here at the college they put it together, and we're happy to have it available today. I mean, it's great. We were just delighted about that. Of course, you saw that, and everybody came out and started grabbing. Where's mine? But the Appalachian Quarterly used to be. People just loved that, and they looked forward to receiving it, and you know, we need to sort of reestablish our position because so many people have stories to tell, and if you don't tell them and get them written down, they will be lost. That brings me to one other thing I want to cover before we go on. Shannon Scott had told me, and I had invited him to this meeting, but he's had some health problems, so he's not here today. Had told me he's interested in putting together a new volume of the Wise County history. You know, the last one by L.F. Addington was published in the mid-50s, and it's not been really updated since that time. And he was going to speak to you just briefly about that to let you know that he's beginning work on that process, and is inviting people who have stories to tell or who would be interested in contributing a certain part, like the economic history or the transportation history or the mineral industry in the mid-50s and on. We're sort of focusing on after World War II, because the whole world changed after World War II, and certainly this area changed after World War II. We were no longer just a sleepy mountain village. As Shannon likes to say, you can't take them back to the farm after they've seen Paris. So a lot of people had seen Paris by then, and they came back here with a lot of different ideas. Some good and some not so good. But you might be thinking about that, because Shannon is eager to work on it, and if you want to help or participate, contribute, I know he would be delighted to hear from you. Wanda, do you have anything else before we step over and get down to our speaker?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, we're pretty laid back here. If you think of something, you can tell us later. Mr. Binko.
Yeah, I want to inform you all of a couple things. I'm with ARC Television. We've got over 1 million viewers on our television network. We have a YouTube channel that goes all over North America. And we're starting a podcast that goes worldwide. So if you really want to reserve these stories, you can print them and all that stuff, but people may not know where to come and get them. So the best place to do it is on the World Wide Web. And we can videotape these stories and people can find out. And we've got so much history here, it is totally unbelievable. And this gentleman right here is going to tell you some of it.
Well, you're one of those people that knows quite a bit of it yourself, so part of your time should be in front of the camera, not just all of it behind the camera, but that's wonderful. We need to write it down, and we also need to get it online and out there for the world to see.
Yeah, and at one time, everybody west here was related to somebody back here.
Mostly they still are.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good thing. Well, our speaker today is Tony Scales down here at the end of the table, and his lovely wife here is with him today, Janice. He did not break her arm. She was able to do what she did all by herself, walking the green belt here. We have to be so careful with Paula, but in any event, she's here and we're happy to have her, and we're delighted to have Tony. I worked with Tony for many years. He not only has wonderful professional credentials as a geologist, I relied on him as an expert witness in many hearings, and believe me, not only did I feel better when he was going to be my witness, but I believe the administrative law judge even felt better when he or she knew they were going to hear from him, because his expertise is that well-rounded. He's written some books. I own the 2 that he has out now that you see down there, and they are wonderful books. He has a 3rd in publication. He will tell you more details about this, and I will be purchasing it when it's available. So I turn you over to Tony Scales.
Thank you, Miss P. How long's it been? 2 years?
Well, it's been a little while. We don't need to go into too many details.
Well, let me tell you one thing on my wife before I get going. When we went to the emergency room, I love going to the emergency room. So we're sitting in the room, and the doctor comes in, and he takes one look at her, and he comes over to me and says, "Let me see the side of your face." And I didn't know what he's talking about, and I went like this. He said, "No, she didn't hit you, so it must have been." I guess that's what, double checking. But I appreciate Sharon inviting me today. If I'd known there's going to be so many people, I would have actually prepared something. This is actually more like a political speech, and then I have a vague outline, and I'm going to wander about the subject, and you're all going to applaud at the end, okay? But I thought I would narrow the subject, especially for you historians, to the past 20,000 years. But we're going to cover a little bit before then, before I get to that. Let me tell you about me. Worked up here on the hill, DMME. My wife did too, our full career. I was a geologist in environmental regulation of principally the coal industry. Worked with gas and oil with Sharon. Helped the mines guys with some safety issues. And there's also a branch agency called Mineral Mining, which does quarries and mineral extraction other than coal. So that was my career. I got bored in the middle of it, so I decided to write books. I didn't get bored. But I started volunteering at some place you may know, Natural Tunnel State Park. I started out in 1986 volunteering down there. And the more I was down there, the more I heard stories that I knew could not possibly be true. Everybody had been to Natural Tunnel, including George Washington. He hadn't. So with my background in geology and it being a notable geologic feature, I decided to do some research on it. 8 years later, voila, a book. And I'm still down there practically every weekend in the summer. My editor on that book, Jason Williams over Mountain Press, was a big whitewater guy. And he said, when we finished that book, he said, you need to go do the breaks, because everybody's familiar with the breaks if you're from Wise County or Southwest Virginia. So I went up there and I made friends. And I spent about 4 years doing that project. So each one is a natural history of that particular geologic wonder. So I retired, said I got one more in me. Let's get this out of the way so I can actually go fishing, which I haven't done in 25 years, by the way. And I flopped around for a subject, and what I was going to do was the mountain passes of Southwest Virginia. If you think about it, everybody talks about the mountains. Nobody goes up on top of the mountains, everybody goes through the passes. And then you start looking at all the important passes in Southwest Virginia, and it was just an enormous task. So I settled on the big dog. And in the intro to the book, I'll share this with you. I fought with myself whether I'm going to do Cumberland Gap. Everybody's done Cumberland Gap. And I was at Natural Tunnel doing a book signing one day, and the guy was talking to me. He said, you thinking of doing anything else? And I thought, yeah, I thought about doing Cumberland Gap. And he said, what's Cumberland Gap? So I said, okay, there's room for one more book. But my approach is principally environmental history. I don't care about people. I'm a geologist. We're just a flash in the pan. I'm kidding, of course. But principally about the place and what that place sees. Shameless self-promotion. I have thousands of copies available in the truck if you're interested. I was really hoping this one would be out. It's in press, and my Overmountain Press, which you may be familiar with, wonderful outfit. And it's not Vanity Publishing. They're a great outfit, but they work on their own schedule, and I understand why. Maybe next month this time. So with that said, and at any point in here, should you wish to interrupt me and argue and or ask a question, please do, because this is not a PowerPoint where I go click, click, click. I'm going to throw up some things with my lovely assistant, Rick, and catch you up, and then we're going to talk about this area that in the human, when the humans populated this continent. Now I got to catch you up on Appalachian geology. Welcome. So what we want to do, lovely assistant. Oh, let me stand up. Why there are mountains here. And you guys have always probably been introduced to one of these at some point or the other. And there are so many websites and books and what have you that talk about the Appalachian orogeny. And an orogeny is simply a mountain building event. It's going on in the Himalayas as we speak. Mount Everest is growing. Had you been here 250 million years ago, you would have been on mountains as high as Mount Everest. And that's because North Africa converged with the North American continent and pushed up these great Appalachian Mountains. And it was a spectacular event. And by the way, at that time, our latitude here in Southwest Virginia was equatorial. So not only were the mountains being built, to this date we've rotated up and we're now in the northern hemisphere. Okay. But anyway.
Hold that up there.
Yeah.
I've been
And
doing this and framing things and putting them on my wall and learning a lot.
I have blatantly taken this out of one of my geology books, and on my PowerPoint I give credit. But all this is showing is that this, plate tectonics has been doing this for millions of years. It shoves up mountains and the mountains wear down. Guess what condition we're in the Appalachians now?
We're on the downside.
We're on the downside, but aren't they pretty?
Yes.
Yes. And the ecosystem is incredible.
That's what, when I moved here 5 years ago, I grew up here as a child and stuff, but as children you don't pay any attention to things. But I kept asking my sister, are we at the top? I don't understand because I keep seeing so many rivers and waterways that are up here and flowing down, so are we at the top?
I see what you're saying, and you brought up a good point. Southwest Virginia is the mother of rivers. All right, now you think about all the rivers that flow out of quote-unquote Southwest Virginia. The New River, the Powell, the Clinch, Tennessee heads there, and I go down the list. But why? Because this was a central highlands, and all the rivers flowed off, and they're wearing down, and we feed the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic. We have rivers that flow north, we have rivers that flow south.
Yeah.
So we were a big highland. But the orogeny, the mountain building episode stopped 250 million years ago. So we're seeing the remnants of 250 billion years of erosion. Yeah. Yes.
I've heard it said that the Appalachian Mountains are the oldest mountains in the world. That is not true.
The oldest existing mountains in the world. There are nubs of mountain ranges billions of years old. Okay, yeah, we're number one.
That's great.
Yeah, we are.
That is, you wanted to know if it was true.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Since you're a geologist, do you know about the cave on top of the hill above Big Stone? There's supposed to be an Addington that knows all about it. I've been in it all the way below Big Stone. There's a river underneath here.
Which cave? There's
I
a
don't
million
know
of
the
them.
name of it. Before the first exit, you go up the mountain, it's steep.
Before this first exit?
The exit coming in, no, the exit coming into off the Powell Valley.
Yeah, we have.
I don't know, there's supposedly a man by the name of Addington that knows all
Well,
about it.
let me say this to that. We have a Virginia Speleological Society, and they do like me with geologic, interestingly places, except they do caves. That makes sense. And they go out and map these things, so we know all these. I will share this with you. We have a cave not very far, and I can't give you the exact location, which has the largest vertical drop east of the Mississippi River.
Really?
I think
And
this
if we
must be it.
Yeah, and if we stepped outside, and I can't do this on camera, because people will come and find it, but it's protected now. But I believe that's the one you're talking about.
Okay, they've welded bars over the entrance,
Yeah.
small entrance, they welded bars over it.
Most of them are now controlled. But to answer your question, I know of caves up in the Shenandoah Valley where you've got a river above them and a dry passage underneath.
Okay.
That's not unheard of.
This river at the bottom, people take flashlights and throw in, it's perfectly clear water, it's cold, and it's about 10 foot deep, and I don't know,
Yeah.
50 foot wide.
We got a million of them, and we're in the heart of some of the best karst. That topography is called karst, K-A-R-S-T, and our area is world renowned for caving. But we've digressed a little bit, but that's a good digression. So you've got an idea of the building of the Appalachians, and this poor old tattered thing, as you can see, has been through a few, hold that lovely assistant, has been through a few field trips, and you'll notice we do have a volcano down here in the Smoky Mountains. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the topography that we've got now. We have the Appalachian. Now, where are the Appalachian Mountains, by the way? That's always a good question.
From Georgia to Maine.
Mount Katahdin or something?
Yeah.
Actually, I've heard it goes all the way to Scotland.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
The
Scottish
equivalent from
Highlands.
where the ocean split apart.
Yeah.
But, and we have different marketing things going on with the southern Appalachians and the middle Appalachians. But yeah, the Appalachians are a mountain chain which essentially start in Newfoundland and go down to Georgia. We're in the heart of it. But the principal mountain parts of the Appalachians are the Blue Ridge. All right, that's the Smokies and your classic Blue Ridge Parkway up through Virginia. All right, old rocks over here. And then in the center we have this wonderful province called Valley and Ridge, and I think you can understand why it's called Valley. It's actually properly called Ridge and Valley, but it's just ridges and valleys, ridges and valleys, ridges and valleys. So you've all driven in this country. You know you have to go northeast or southwest and find some place to get over the mountain. That's the story of Southwest Virginia. And then when you get over just across Little Stone here, you get into the coal fields, which are still considered parts of the Appalachians. When you slide down, say about Corbin, you're going into Kentucky, you're out of the Appalachians.
Okay.
If you're in Ohio and you're going east from Pittsburgh, and you get past Wheeling, you're out of the Appalachians. It's the mountainous coal areas, the Valley and Ridge, and the Blue Ridge. Okay. Can you see where you're at?
Yep.
We're actually right there.
Oh,
See? This is Powell Valley. I'll show this to you a number of times. We're going to talk about that. But you'll notice.
so we're up in an elbow.
Very good, yeah. We are the last, well, there's Tennessee's got us beat. If you've ever been to Sequatchie Valley, but this is the major valley between the Valley and Ridge and the coal fields. And if you start here and you drive down, you'll end up in Alabama. And all the time you've been driving, the coal fields have been to your right and the Valley and Ridge has been over to your left. You go down through Lockwood and then down to Chattanooga and just keep on. And that's the topography. Ridge and Valley, Ridge and Valley. And this is the principal quote-unquote settled area, because you know there's so much flat ground as compared to over here in the Appalachians or the coal fields. Now, let's see. Let me grab that other map. Can I have a round of applause for my lovely assistant?
What does it pay?
A hearty hi-ho and a pat on the back.
That's what I thought.
Let's see. Yeah, I'll show you this one because it's over Virginia, and then we'll get to that and that. I'm coming to you. And let's talk about physiographic provinces. And this is a good old state of Virginia. And in this particular map, which is by our outfit, the Virginia Division of Mineral Resources, wonderful geological survey, this shows the different physiographic provinces of Virginia. And a lot of people say we only have 3, but we have 5. Okay?
When you say physiographic.
Physiographic, good question. That means, what's it look like?
Okay.
All right? If I told you there was a physiographic province, which obviously means an area, called the Great Plains, can you envision what the Great Plains physiographic province looks like?
Yeah.
Voila.
Okay.
Flat.
Yeah.
Now I've talked about the Valley and Ridge. Can you imagine what that province looks like? It looks like a series of valleys and ridges.
Okay.
And that's it, right? Right here.
Okay.
And then you get into the Blue Ridge, which is the high old rocks, the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Smokies. All right. So that's our furthest east mountain range in the Appalachians. We got the Valley and Ridge. And then over here, see all that blue? That's the coal-bearing area of southwest of Virginia.
Okay.
The coal fields. All right.
And
You
this
can,
is like,
ah,
oh, now I
you
understand.
rock. I'm proud of you. Now, I want you to imagine this. You ever drive up Powell Valley?
Yes.
Duh.
Yeah.
We all do, because Walmart's up there. So you drive up Powell Valley, and you're on this nice, beautiful, flat valley, and you go up this mountain, all of a sudden, you're higher, right? There's still ground there, but it's, look at me shake. Stop it, Rick. But you're up on the plateau, which is, a plateau by definition is an elevated mountainous area. Deeply dissected, because you've driven around in the coal fields and you know it's like driving a snake. and that's the coal fields.
I was told that by someone who goes to the Big Cherry a lot.
Yeah.
Up on High Knob. And there is a swamp on top of that area, and it's 3,000. It's like 3,800 feet tall. And he said this plateau, and it feels like you're in a valley because it's swampy, and trees have even grown up in such a way that they're trying to avoid the water. It's like being down in the Georgia swamps. But he said it was higher than the top of Pine Mountain going to Kentucky. That swamp.
Quite possible. Yeah, I don't know the, yeah.
So I guess that's plateau.
That is very true. You ever heard of the cranberry bogs over here?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, you know, what's a bog doing on top of a mountain? But that's a drainage thing. Same thing. You got a good point. If you haven't done that, go up to the, you go into Lynch. Anyway, you turn there and you go up, Inman, go up the mountain. I try to stay out of there as much as possible.
Bad roads.
Sorry?
Bad roads.
Yes, sir, but you get up there right on the Virginia border, you look back, and you can see Big Stone Gap, not the town, but the real gap, and then you look across to High Knob and you say, that's just about the same elevation. High Knob's higher. But yeah, good point. We have a half a mile of relief around here. Now you think about that. If you go out to Iowa, relief is the distance between the low points and the high points. You'd be hard pressed to be in the hundreds of feet. It's usually in the tens between the valleys and whatever's higher. Here we can go half a mile, 2,500 feet. That's a lot of relief.
Yeah.
If you go to Denver, and you think, oh, look at those magnificent Rocky Mountains there. They're only about 6,000 feet higher. Because Denver starts at 6,000. Anyway, let's finish up with the Physiographic Provinces. So there we are, Coalfields, Valley Ridge, Blue Ridge. This is the Piedmont, where all the rich people live and take all your tax money. Charlottesville. And then this line right here, if you remember your old history in elementary school, that's the fall line. Why did all the major settlements happen at the fall line? Water power. And that's where the creeks come, or the rivers flowing out of the Piedmont flow onto the coastal plain, and you have a drop, and you had kinetic energy, and they built mills. Richmond, D.C., Washington, D.C. Okay. I spend a lot of time on Appalachian Geology.
She wants to take a picture.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to own that now.
I'll tell you
Did
what.
you say the fault line? Show me the fault line that comes through this area.
Oh, you hold on.
Yeah, he was talking.
Well, I know
I was talking the fall line, which
fall
is
line. I'm sorry.
which
There's
is
a difference, isn't there?
And if you go up and down the eastern United States, the fall line is where most of our it was the point where you could sail a boat, and then there was a waterfall, right? So they stopped the boat and they got out. They built a mill. They ground corn. They ground whatever needed to be ground. All right. You all are just going to have to shut up, or I'm not going to get through this.
No, you'll just have to come back again.
Part one.
Now I'm going to.
We have all day.
Now I'm going to tune you into something, and if there's one thing, you just hold on to that a second, Rick. I'm going to put this other one up. Okay. Yeah, just hold on to this because we're going to go back to back. You can take away one thing from this fault, man. I beat this into all the. Is anybody having whiskey? I'm thirsty. I beat this into everybody I'm introducing geology to. If you understand this, you will understand what I consider Southwest Virginia. Now, this is an actual thing from an image taken by the space shuttle. Remember when we used to send those up? This is side-looking aperture radar. It's just another way of imaging the world. And what you need to think about this, and I'm going to tune you in where everything is, think as if this is the topography and the high mountains have snow on top of them. And the deep valleys don't, and they're dark and black. All right, so once I do that, you can see this has to be high ground, that has to be high ground, that has to be high ground. That's definitely high ground. And then we got these deep, dark valleys and holes. What are they? Here we go. You are here. We're right there on that ridge. That's Wallen Ridge right there. Got it? That's Stalker Knob, you Lee County types. See that one?
So we're low compared to the around
Yeah.
us.
And if you see that little notch right there in that mountain, that's Big Stone Gap. That is the gap.
Oh,
And you go down one more, what's the next gap down?
Pound Gap? No.
Out on, if you're going down to Lee County,
Lee
then
Cumberland.
Pennington.
Yeah,
Pennington Gap.
thank you.
Pennington.
You get the prize.
Pennington.
And then if you go way on down, you have to look,
Months.
there is Cumberland.
Cumberland.
Okay. Now, yeah, I'm having fun with you guys, so I'm going to teach you a little, topography here. This is Powell Valley. See how it opens up? So, from Big Stone Gap, the gap, forget the town, to the top of the mountain is Little Stone Mountain. So from there to the overlook is Little Stone Mountain. From Big Stone Gap to Pennington Gap is Stone Mountain. You know, you'll hear people use it interchangeably, but there's a difference. Little Stone, Stone, and then it remains Stone until you get down to White Rocks.
Oh, man.
And that's where you could start using the term Cumberland. I get so mad at some of our, well, I probably shouldn't say it since I'm on television. Some of our local people on TV refer to the Cumberland Mountains. We ain't the Cumberland Mountains. We are the Appalachians. The Cumberland Mountains are down at Cumberland Gap
Okay.
and the Cumberland River drainage.
The
Okay,
Cumberland
does-
Plateau of Tennessee.
Does that then, because the signage and everything, you get over to Dickinson County there and over Clintwood,
Mhm.
going up that way, going north, and that, they call that, my understanding was Cumberland Mountains.
That's wrong.
Okay,
Because what you refer to a mountain by the drainage. If you pour water on that mountain, where does it go?
okay,
If you pour water on Clinch Mountain, it's going to go into the Clinch River, ergo it's Clinch Mountain. If you pour water on Powell Mountain, it's going to go into Powell River. Now, if you go up to Flat Gap,
yeah,
and you just top over Flat Gap heading to Kentucky, you're in the Cumberland River drainage, and that's where you can officially
That's
start.
okay,
That's just a little quibble I have.
Okay.
Okay. But you get up, hey, is that whiskey?
Yeah, straight shot.
Woo, that's hot whiskey.
Hot whiskey.
But, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
When you get up Dixon and Buchanan County, you're in Ohio River drainage.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Good
So
question.
it's the drainage that determines the mountain,
Exactly.
okay,
Now, if you live in Harrogate, Tennessee, you're not in the Cumberland Mountains because you're in the Powell River drainage. But you top over into Cumberland Gap, top over into,
Penny?
what's the big city over there?
Middlesboro.
Thank you, sir. Come on, I just wrote a book on the place. You're in Cumberland Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I'll point that out. If I've worn this out, oh, I've got to show you two more things on this. Here's the places I've dealt with. Right here's the brakes. You have to understand the brakes. Do you see this high thing right here?
Mhm.
That's Pine Mountain. All right.
All of that is Pine Mountain?
All of that is Pine Mountain, 125 miles of it.
Wow.
Pine Mountain is the last linear mountain range in the Appalachians. Got it? It is a thrust fault mountain. You see the coal fields over here? This is eastern Kentucky. See how the drainage changes? That's the last mountain in the Appalachians. And guess what? The breaks is right where that mountain ends. That's why people refer to it as breaks, as if the mountain broke or the river broke through the mountain.
Okay.
All
So
right.
that whole white line on there's Pine Mountain?
Yes, ma'am. And right here's breaks. Right here's Pound Gap.
Okay.
All right. You,
So about halfway
you
in
Wise
between.
Countyans? Yeah. There's Pound. I'm sorry. There's Pine. Yeah. Here's Pound Gap. Jeez, I'll get it right. And P is.
Pine Mountain.
That's Pine Mountain. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So Pound is right here. Here's breaks. This is Pine Gap. If you've ever driven to Kentucky that
Yeah.
way, that's 25. Yeah. Everybody says good old Boone found the way, which he did, but he found it from other people. But if you cross at Cumberland Gap, you still got this big mountain right here, Pine Mountain. And the gap there, Pine Gap, is a water gap. You walk through at stream level. If you walk over Cumberland Gap and don't take the tunnel, you go up and down. So right there is the real key to getting into Kentucky. And I talk about that in my Cumberland Gap book. And by the way, you see that big black hole right there?
Yeah.
That is a meteorite impact.
Where?
Awesome, right there.
Can you see it?
Middlesboro.
How can you miss it?
What is it close to? It's over in Kentucky, right?
What was the name of that town again?
Middlesboro.
Thank you. Middlesboro, Kentucky is sitting in a meteor crater.
It looks like it too if you get up on that where you can look over.
That's what I was just
from the
gonna ask.
college, yeah.
When I first started as a dumb little geology student back in the late 70s, some of my professors were saying, can you imagine some of these people are saying that's a meteorite impact? That's absurd. It's not. And there's been a lot of research on it.
How big is it? I mean, circumference.
How far is
the
it across
diameter?
that? Have you been to
No.
Middlesboro? You should go down and just drive from Cumberland Gap, the park, through Middlesboro, and when you get to, there's a golf course there. Shoot. Anyway, you're driving out of town, and you're just driving along flat, and everything's happening. And all of a sudden, you're doing this again.
Wow.
You've driven across the crater.
Well, for Pete's sake, who knew?
And it's known as, it's the only place in the world where coal has been mined in a meteor crater. Because the coal fields were there already, and the meteor came slamming in, and it actually tore it all to pieces. But they
When was the impact?
I wish I had
I'm
the
just
draft
talking
of my
about
Cumberland Gap
millions
book
of
here.
years,
It's,
right?
Oh, so this,
it's
we
about
need, we need to get that book when he
175 million
gets
years
out.
ago. And one reason I write books is because I don't have to remember all these things. Ooh, that tastes like, oh. But, now here's what, okay, I need to get to the rest of my talk, but you guys are enjoying this, but I wanted to impress upon you one thing. If this is the last mountain in the Appalachians, the last mountain range, Pine Mountain, 125 miles long. It's the last major fault in the Appalachians. And I need to introduce you to the Cumberland Overthrust Block. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Hold that right where it is, Rick. Now, I want you to grab that and put it over the top of it. Let's do this again. Here's brakes. All right. If you've ever driven up, what's the interstate from, goes up to Kentucky, the other side of Knoxville?
75.
75, thank you. You drive along and you go up the mountain at Jacksboro and La Follette and that area. That's down there. And I want to introduce you to the Hunter Valley Fault, and I'll tell you where you can see the Hunter Valley Fault next time you drive to Kingsport. All right, you hold what you got. I'm going to let this unfold back that way. Can you see that overthrust block now? There's a fault that runs like this, and a fault that runs along, the Hunter Valley Fault that runs like this, and then it goes up at Jacksboro. And this great big slice, all moved as one unit.
Wow.
and it's the last thrust fault in the Appalachians, and we live on it. All right. Natural tunnel is just off the Hunter Valley Fault, and you can see the Hunter Valley Fault at Duffield. And when you go through the lights, everybody know where Kenny Fannon's place is? You go through the light there, and just before you start up the mountain, you'll see it's actually dolostone, but you may think of it as limestone sitting on top of a black shale. And that contact is the fault, and you're on the Hunter Valley Fault. Right about here. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
The fault came after the coal, and that broke the continuity between the coal and this.
The fault formed after the coal fields had formed.
Right.
And in places contemporaneous with it. You can go down and in the Tennessee particularly, and here in Virginia, what am I saying? Some of our coal seams are faulted. Yes, St. Paul is the best place to see that. Yeah. Any more questions for? Yes, sir.
You were saying that was a meteorite that fell. Kentucky, I've worked in 28-inch high coal. Did that have anything compressing the?
No, sir. And I'd love to talk coal with you. My thesis was on paleo environmental conditions of coal formation. And what that is, if you study a coal seam, you can figure out how it formed. And thicknesses are just a function of how much peat you accumulate.
Oh, okay.
And Lord have mercy, you work 28-inch coal?
28-inch coal, like under this table.
Yeah. I've been in that coal. I saw a boss man, he was at least 6'6", and he could run down those headings, and I was crawling on my belly. I cannot understand.
Does all peat bogs have coal under them?
No.
Okay.
Our area is so notable in that we have 59 to 60 named coal seams. There was far more peat lost than preserved, and you can see how long we've mined coal, and there's still incredible reserves out there. The amount of preservation is incredible. But no, do you compost? If you don't, don't, you should.
I have.
Okay, I admonish you now.
Okay.
If you don't turn your compost over for a while and you open it up, what's it smell like?
Manure.
It smells stinky, and that's
Yeah.
because it's preserving carbon. That's what our swamps did. That's why you smell sulfur with coal. But you want your compost to actually break down,
Right.
so you keep turning it. But I get off on that side.
Well, I asked, and the reason I ask is in Minnesota, I lived in Minnesota for 34 years, and Minnesota has, in central Minnesota, is very much peat bogs all over the
Yeah,
place. And you get a fire started and it'll burn
And it'll burn
underground yeah.
Yeah, and those are glacial.
That's glacial.
Formed in the old
Yeah.
kettles.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And if you go up into Ohio and points there, it's wonderful farm ground.
Mm-hmm.
Good dirt.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had some down here.
I know. I'd make a million if I could get a semi truck up and down here.
Hi. Speaking of coal mines, I brought a fossil that came from a coal mine.
I'll just have to take that home with me, maybe. I'll have to spend a couple of years investigating.
But
That's a lovely
it is a lovely piece.
Where'd you find it?
My daughter's
Oh, yeah, that's
friend found that in the
that's
coal
a
mine.
wonderful sample.
Isn't that a wonderful?
Yeah.
Don't drop it.
And literally, I have a number of references. You can actually figure out what species it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
In time frame?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He said it was deep. It was a deep mine that came
Yeah.
down.
Well, you guys have got me off subject again, so I have to.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, you go ahead while I'm doing it.
Everybody has a different answer to this, so I'm asking you. Why do you say Appalachian Mountains and Appalachia when you're in Appalachia?
My wife was born and raised in the town of Appalachia. These mountains are the Appalachians. If I'm telling people where am I going, I say I'm going up into Appalachia. Appalachia is the province. Appalachians is the mountains. Appalachia is the town.
Okay.
Okay? And our son teaches at Virginia Tech, the geography department. He wears this subject out. And it's really preference, but whenever I'm talking about the mountains, I say Lake.
She's a lady from Pam.
And if I was talking about the region, I'd say Appalachia. Isn't that awful?
No.
I evaded your question 100%.
Well, I think that's true. The region, it is a regional thing.
It is.
But, you know, when we leave the region, we still will argue.
I argue with my friends.
You know what? It's those people from outside that get confused.
Yeah.
We understand what's going on.
Exactly.
Since you brought the coal fossil, I was going to share this with you.
Tony,
Yes.
what is the commission?
I'm sorry?
What is the commission?
The commission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Appalachian Regional Commission?
You call it Appalachian.
Good point. You got me, Mike.
And does it really have the Appalachian region? I mean, it has it in it, but is it the boundaries of the Appalachian?
Yeah, now that's arguable, but let me do this for a second. I'll get right back to that question. This is from a publication that my buddies at the Mineral Resources do, and you can see they actually, this is the entire coal stratigraphy from the first coal seam to the last in Virginia. And over here are the ranges of the plants that grew in it.
Oh.
So if we could, you know, if I spent a little time and looked up your fossil, I could say, okay, it's Neuropterus smeltzi. We would know that it would have been anywhere between 325 and 317 million years old.
Wow.
This is cool.
It is.
All right, now back to yours. The Appalachian Regional Commission, as I understand it, was based on the mountainous topography extending into the coal fields. My dad was raised in Belmont County, Ohio, and you would look at it and swear that it's not part of the Appalachians, but it's a coal-bearing area, so it was included. But you go north 20 miles, you're out of it. That's how I understand it. Sharon might be able to speak to it better than I, because you gave me a great publication.
I'm past all that.
Yeah,
And I've written no books.
You're like me, you don't care anymore.
That time has come and gone.
So, am I running out of time? I don't know what's going on.
Well.
My time is your time.
We've done all day, don't we?
If I finish up here, I have to go home and take care of her. So I just
We'll
assume.
just get to a comfortable spot that you want. It's the right spot to stop.
No.
Whenever.
Oh, I was just going to hit, you guys have worn me out on Appalachians. I was going to talk to you about the Appalachians, whatever, the last 20,000 years. And that's, to a geologist, that's a spit in the bucket. And, oh, I want to recommend 3 books to you. Not just mine. There's a wonderful book by Ed Davis out of the University of Georgia called Where There Are Mountains. I don't know if you've read it, but if you want to understand the cultural and environmental history of the Appalachians, I really recommend it. Where There Are Mountains. Now, if you want to go a little deeper into geology, my professor, an old friend, wrote this one. It's about Tennessee, but Tennessee's just right there. And it's called The Last Billion Years. That's a great title, by Don Byerly. Last Billion Years. It's a little more detailed, and it's like me reading psychology. I'd kind of skip over some of the big words to learn what's going on.
Is that B-Y-E-R-L-Y?
B-Y-E-R-L-Y. And this is the same. If you want to understand the evolution of the forests in Appalachia,
that one.
He's another old professor of mine, Forest and Peril by Hazel R. Delcourt.
Delcourt?
Delcourt, D-E-L-C-O-U-R-T. Now again, these last two I've told you are, you know, you got to be ready to wear on it a little bit. When I was going out to graduate school, this fine lady was teaching something called palynology. It had nothing to do with rocks, so I wasn't even going to get close to it. But palynology is the study of pollen, and she applied the study of pollen to sediments in the Appalachians and was able to describe how the forest has changed through time. It really opened my eyes. You may think that we've had a static forest of giant trees until a white man came along and cut them down. Not. At the height of the last ice age, if we stepped outside of this building, we'd be in a taiga. We'd be in a scrubby coniferous forest. We'd have icicles dripping off of our nose. All the trees, all the ancestors of the trees we see now were hanging out down in Georgia. They had been pushed south by the glaciers. And then over the past, round number 20,000 years, they've just quietly marched north, right? So we look outside and we say, oh, this landscape is never changing. It does. The forest has changed. Ever since the last ice age, peak of the last ice age, the Appalachians have been undergoing erosion from the word go. They kind of got frozen up, not glaciated, but colder during the ice age. It went back. We started the old erosion again. What happened out here in Crackers Neck that had everybody excited recently?
Landslides.
Landslide. Those don't happen, do they? The principal landscape modification mechanism in our area besides the rivers is landslides. Landslides are normal, and this is just the mountains falling down. We're dealing with it in human terms. You know, we're only on here at 60 to 80 years. That never happens. How many times you heard it's never rained that hard? Never seen the snow that deep. Well,
I think there's things in cycles. Is it not that you'll have a 20-year cycle, a 30 or 50, 100?
yeah, and floods are based on that in probability. But there is a cyclicity to certain things. And I won't say landslides are.
But the weather, the changes in the weather, which
if you look back in the you know, I'm not excited about climate change.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
bring it on. I grow tomatoes. But we're getting all bent out of shape about that. And if you look in the geologic record, it's
right.
And there was a cyclicity based on many other factors. But
yeah.
Is there a human impact? Yeah. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
I pay enough in taxes. We got medical bills. Oh Lord, you wouldn't.
But no, that's what I don't understand, because I think when people are get so out of shape about things like that, but it's natural. It's part of the system of this earth.
We're taking her home with us. You know, I don't want to belittle how people think, but yeah, you know, calm down.
It takes a while for it to sink in. At Crackers Neck, didn't they fix the landslide a few years ago, and then it happens right again?
Yeah, and that's not uncommon that the same landslide will reactivate. And the best thing to do is just leave it alone. Yeah. And you take care of what's around it that could be impacted. Because, you know, we all want to throw money at things, and look at New Orleans. We're maintaining a city below sea level. I've always thought it absurd. Las Vegas, we're running all the water out in the middle of the desert where there shouldn't be a town. That's just how humans think. Oh gosh, I don't want to go into politics. I got to share this one thing, Sharon. I heard this morning on the news, and I'm not doing anything political here. You know, there's President Trump has the no more entrance policy right now, and one of the commentators said, why, North America is the least populated continent besides Australia. We can take in lots of people. And I thought about that and said, yeah, we can. But is that what we want to do?
Mhm.
And I'm not going political on that.
Right,
I
right.
can't understand how some people look at climate events, social events, and put some kind of spin on it. But I'm a scientist. I need to shut up. I almost went political. Have I worn it out? Would you like me to shut up?
Can you come back? Can he come back?
We could have you for a second time. How would that work? And then
Essentially, what I've done is taken you up until what I wanted to talk about.
well, and you may have your third book available.
I hope so. I hope
Well,
so.
we hope so too. I particularly, I want the whole collection. I can't be satisfied with 2
Do you have
outfits.
some with you?
But,
I have thousands of copies.
Sorry,
Let me add another book it's old, but it's kind of fun to read. It's called The Appalachians by Maurice Brooks. He was a forester from West Virginia. It's a real old book, but it's a fun book to read. And,
I have read that years
You know
ago.
what?
I did
think I
too.
did too.
it is-
Is it still
Borrowed
in
it.
print?
I don't know if I have any or not.
But
Used to have
that book,
it.
Where There Are Mountains by Ed Davis, and he's a professor at the University of Georgia. It's a little technical in places, but he covers the change in the Appalachians since the peopling of the continent, which we're going to again say is 20,000 years ago.
Just the Appalachians.
Name of the book?
Where there are mountains.
Where There Are Mountains. And that's actually a line from the Hernando de Soto expedition. The guy writing for it said, "Where there are mountains, there are chestnuts."
It's called Appalachian.
And back then, the chestnut was king. And if you wanted to figure out where the mountains were, you'd look for the chestnuts and go, as if you needed to in the Appalachians.
well, everyone, let's give Tony a round of applause.
I love this.
And your lovely assistant and your lovely wife.
She has to sit through another one of my talks, but
She didn't have to testify against you on that one. We do want you to think about coming back, and when you get your book out, and you can start from there and go forward, we would love that. I do want everyone who's interested to take a brochure on the garden fair, which is in Abingdon, sponsored by the Master Gardeners Easter weekend. And what we don't take, I'm going to ask Michael to put in the library, which would be wonderful. Did everyone who had earned a book get their book? Because we have those. I hope that Gaynell would be here. We have Gaynell really to thank for the content, and we have Michael and his crew to thank for putting it together for us. And we are delighted.
And we passed the brochures out that shows what we have. We've got 4 of them that shows what we got in that collection.
I want one to keep, this is not me.
But we want you to buy those things then.
Okay. That's fine. Oh, well, I
They're going around.
I got one when I first got in here. We bought That's how many check with you.
yes.
That's all right, that's all right.
Well, now, I don't know.
I really don't want to.
Do we have any other business to conduct or conclude before the end of our meeting? We have coffee down here, and we still have some pastries left, so help yourself. All right, meeting's over. Thank you all.
Thank you.